back a long way. It seems like we are always at hospitality suites having fun at writers conferences together. Thank you for all being here too, the rest of you. I think it's kind of nice to do something different during these crazy times. And later tonight, I'll read a poem that I wasn't going to read, but it's about repairing the world, and I thought it would be appropriate to read that poem. So I'll read that after I read some of the art poems. So here's the book. This is Dancing with Dolly. And I like to write about everything and anything. I grew up surrounded by art. My brother is an artist. He went to Rhode Island School of Design. And my grandfather used to take me around to visit his friends in upstate New York who were all artists and people who made sculptures. And his house was a really fun place to wander around as a child. It was almost like a museum. He had artifacts from other countries. He had these big wooden knot sculptures. He had abstract art everywhere. So I've always been surrounded by it. I never studied art. I'm not an art expert. So this is a poet's response to art, which is called acrostic poetry. Okay, and I'm not the first one to have done this, but I just started this project and I kept doing it. Dancing with Dolly, the title came from, I felt like I was having fun with the images. I picked a lot of artists that paint surreal images. That seems to be what I'm drawn to. So I felt like I was playing with these artists, and that's why I called it Dancing with Dolly. So I'm going to start with the title poem, which is called Dancing with Dolly. In here, there are references to images from various paintings by Magritte and by Dali. And by the way, on my honeymoon, I got to go to Paris and visit the Dali Art Museum, which was inspirational as well. Dancing with Dolly. His hands grow too large and swallow my palms as we attempt to waltz across the desert. Odd items fly overhead, a melting clock, elephants and swans, a seated Madonna. It is all about desire, he sings in my ears, now turning into bees. Behind a skeleton tree, Magritte hides in the drawers of an armoire, his face covered by an apple. A brush in his hand paints our dance. I imagine the image of us will be forever blocked by a hat. My attention now turns to Dolly, who is swirling away, dancing instead with Marilyn's lip couch, waltzing through the desert until the dwindling speck of cadmium vanishes. The second one is called Summer Wasteland. It's strange, Malika, I can't see anyone. Am I supposed to be able to see everyone? Oh, thanks. Oh, now I can see everyone. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, try the grid. If you go to the gallery view, a lot of times you'll be able to see us up at the top.
I got it. I felt like I was in a room reading to myself.
You know, that's why I said keep the video up, because I read when there was no video up, and it is like, it's awkward.
Weird.
I'm glad you got to us. Awesome.
Okay. The second one I'm going to read is actually the first one in the collection. It's called Summer Wasteland. And this came from, I think, a series of images. And by the way, in the back of the book, I have a list of the images that inspired various poems in the book. It's in a note section, if you want to look them up later. Summer Wasteland. A clear demarcation exists between blue uncertainty and sandy beach. Here, sky is ocean and ocean clouds. This is not the pearl sanctuary of summer, but a graveyard without burial. No coffin exists for the headless woman. Do not ask where are her feet, her hands. Do not ask why the dog died. Some cruel architect of the sand carved out a reverse castle indentation of square and chimney, natural container to capture red-orange blood. Her giant head floats between two places, facing its body with closed eyes. We turn away from our own end. The only living creatures that remain are 7 blood-red fish swimming on the blue side, oblivious to death waiting on land. Here's the one about the, thank you, about the frozen clock. So you can pull up, it's actually an image of melting clocks. He does a lot of things with the clocks. There's melted ones and frozen time and so on. If you have the book, it's on page 12, Frozen Clock. It is so hot in the south that time melts away. The clock folds into itself. As a child, it seemed I could freeze the hours. My mother would remain 40, moving as fast as a NASCAR race car and healthy for eternity. My father would continue mowing the lawn through summer's wilting grass, his shirt drenched in Saturday sweat, while ants crawled at a snail's pace up and down their slow-built mound. The yard is now a concrete lawn. My mother's heart races, her fastest movement these days. The anthills have long since flattened out. My own hair grows quickly gray, and the only thing frozen in time, my father's heart and body stopped and still beneath this heated ground. I didn't realize I had a lot of things about family in here. So it's amazing what happens when you look at images where your family is nowhere in the art. You suddenly go there, so one thing leads to another. There are all these subconscious things that happen. It's very dreamlike. So it's kind of fun to see where it goes. If you want to do something different writing, you should try it. You could do it with fiction also. This one is about my brother. So when I was probably 7 or 8, I looked up to my big brother, David. He's, I think, 4 years older than myself. There are 2 other brothers, so I have 3 brothers. And David could always paint and draw. He was amazing. I can't even draw a straight line. But my brother David, we went into RISD, like I mentioned, and he paints amazing things. And I tried to go to art lessons because I wanted to paint like he did. And I was not successful. And I had to quit because I'm very sensitive to smells. I guess I always have been. And the smell of turpentine made me sick. So I quit because of the turpentine. The artist. I wanted to paint like my older brother. I created sienna swollen thick lines on canvas, thin attempts at cadmium yellow fruit in failed crimson half circular bowls, then onto cartoonish suns and moons, all symbols for what I desired to know and show to others. I cried when turpentine fumes sent me into a spell of dizzy confusion, away from the brush and oil paints. Now, through words instead, I'm still trying to invoke the sun and moon. As I lie down, staring at glowing, unattainable figures, all metaphors at best, while my brother conjured his force so real, he has wandered off the canvas edge and become lost inside the painted woods. I'm gonna read a Picasso poem. So there is an image, Malika, about showing Picasso's Guernica. And I got to see this painting in person, even though this poem is not about that specific painting. I was lucky enough to see the entire Picasso show many, many years ago in New York. And what was amazing is that when Picasso was very young, when he was a boy, he was able to draw and paint things exactly as they were. And then he spent the rest of his life trying to sort of destroy that and try different things, you know, like cubism and all the other forms. So his goal was not to imitate what he saw the way we see it. It was to flip it on its head. And I think we try to do that as writers as well. If Picasso worked in the mall food court, of course he flirts with all the women, young mothers pushing strollers, 20-year-old blonde Neiman Marcus sales clerks dressed in Donna Karan or Valentino. He draws them naked in his mind, whistles while he sweeps up pizza, crust, French fries, chicken nuggets. The spills of milkshakes and cola he eagerly anticipates so he can swipe the mop strands through brush-like, creating art of pink, white, and brown, liquid collages on linoleum canvas with no sense of permanence, a slipping hazard for passers-by who might not make aesthetic sense of the swirls and swivels. Danger, he knows, so he sets down the orange cones. He hopes one day to be recognized for creating rather than erasing amidst the daily throwing out and cleaning up of waste that from the right perspective might become a work of art. He dreams these same mall patrons will place his future paintings in their cart instead of shoes and scarves. So that was kind of a silly one. Have to get silly once in a while. I like to imagine these artists and writers, if they hadn't succeeded, what would their jobs be? and how would they perceive things? So I imagined Picasso trying to make art even in the things that spill on the ground, collages and so on. So this painting that's on the front kind of comes from the Red Poppy's work of art, which is very famous. And I wrote a poem called Red. This one is short. So much red. Not Vincent van Gogh's poppies this time. Rows of cheerful red flowers looking up to the spired tree-filled sky. No, not red poppies in a field, but red faces against church pews, prayers startled on lips, bodies slumped over. Texas parishioners walk into a church, but never get to leave. What good is that row of flowers that no one gets to see? So that was about the shooting in the church. So I think those are the art poems I want to read. Do I have time to read 3 other poems, Malika, or is my time up? I'm good? Okay. So I wanted to read a poem that I wrote because it seems appropriate for these very odd times right now. And this was from Praying at Coffee Shops, a book of Jewish poems. So there's a term in Judaism called tikkun olam, which means repair of the world. And I actually had a dream. I was very close to my Opa, which is grandfather in German. And I actually had this dream, and then I wrote this poem. Tikkun olam, the dream and the thread. He reclines inside, start again. He reclines inside my dream, his eyes neither opened nor closed, the Hebrew book in his lap, pages set flat. I move closer, lean in. His fingers rest on 2 words, tikkun olam. What message, Opa? I spend the morning paging through possibility. Repair of the world or mend the fissures inside my own self? So many cracks lately, visible even from the heavens. A month later, the towers crack, tremble, fall. Smoke remains in my eyes. Is this what the messenger sent? What was meant by those words delivered from the dead? Yesterday at a party, a ceramic fondue pot split in two. Chocolate avalanche suffocated the flame. Today I place a roasting pan inside the oven. Soft cracking alerts my ears. The pan splits in half, like land after a quake, sudden separation between past and future. The danger of falling in stares back at me. Where are those seamstresses when you need them? Again, I ask, what does it mean? I look to the night sky for answers, to the stars and blackness and moon. Inside my chest, I feel the knot of thread pulling, rising. When I open my mouth, a silver thread deserts me, searching for the hole of the silver needle. Where are the hands that know how to sew? The silent, still hands of the dead no longer weave the earth together again, unless they can rise inside our dreams and gently guide our hands, needle by needle, thread by thread, fissure by fissure, seam by seam. I wanted to read a poem about my mother, because today's my mother's birthday. I think she's 84, 85. I'm starting to lose track. And my mother was in a very unhappy marriage, and my dad was unkind to her physically, and we witnessed bad things. But I remember I used to climb this tree in the yard and observe everything. I think that as writers, we did that early, or as artists, we do that. This is called hanging laundry. Do you remember when people used to actually dry the laundry on the clothesline? Well, I used to like to watch her clipping up the laundry, hanging laundry. Summer afternoon, outside, your mother, 35 and still married, clips clothes into the line. Your three brothers' pants, your father's Oxford shirts. A dog chain jangles across the grass. You watch from the willow tree, hidden behind branches and distance. Your bruised legs dangle in the hot July air. Inky branches sway in an unexpected breeze before the flash storm. Scent of wet clothes sweeps inside your nose. The ice cream truck bell calls away your focus. But before you leave the tree, you see your mother's melancholy face and those dark eyes swollen with disappointment. Watching the dog that cannot run away from this patch of yard, she paces between wooden clips, places her hand on her own shirt collar that tightens around her neck. Not very cheerful, sorry. I'm gonna read just two more poems. Two poems, or should I read one, Malika? Two, one, two, okay. I'm gonna read, I've been writing a series of Ferryman poems, and this is one of them. Okay, this is called When the Ferryman Quits. You know, the ferryman transported the dead across the river. That's about the origin, you probably know that. When the ferryman quits. Grown tired of delivering those heavy bodies across that bad river, the ferryman surrenders oars to the water. He watches as wooden paddles float downstream. To his surprise, no screams release from the clouds. Stiffly, he rises up from years of sitting sedentary inside that vessel. The ferryman steps out to a square of land, stretches his legs and calves until a lion leaps and attacks, leaving the gods dying with laughter. Okay. And then the final one is actually a flash piece. I kind of go between writing flash and poetry and now novels. So it's short, it's I don't know if you can see it, it's one paragraph. And the French way to read the title is Denouement. I just say denouement. That's the Jersey way to say it. The denouement of Mr. Potato Head. Mr. Potato Head falls off the desk. It is all too much. Streams of paperwork, computer glitches, that dizzying, spinning throbber icon that throws him off balance. What choice does he have? Hide beneath clutter? Return to the box? He longs for halcyon factory days. Born from the metal mold of his mother, he wants to melt into that embryonic plastic state when the machinery of life was only a distant hum. So thank you for listening.
Muted. I've unmuted everybody.
Yay.
Everybody's unmuted.
That was fun.
Yay! Thank you, Maureen. Yay! Thank you.
Wonderful.
That's awesome. Oh, so there's a lot of different funny comments in here, Maureen, so I'm going to kind of go back over them. I did want to check one thing, though.
Okay.
To buy the book, we can go to Future Cycle Press.
Yes.
What's the best link?
You know what, just go to my website. I have links to all my books on there. I think that's the easiest, www.maureenSherbondy.com. You can also get that book on Amazon. You can get it directly from the publisher, and it's called futurecycle.com.
And if they can go to your website, because we've got the link in the chat, they can just click on that. That's perfect. I just want to make sure people know where to get it.
Okay.
And so there was some.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say there was. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
There it is.
Quail Ridge has one copy left.
Quail Ridge has one single copy. I was going to say that some hilarious comments on here. Paul said about the clothes hanging. We called that. Wait, let's see if I can find it. Solar clothes dryers. Yeah, solar clothes dryers.
Funny.
And then also, let me get to this one. Barry said Mr. Potato Head needs to retire too, like Paul is.
I think Barry was projecting. I think that he needs to retire.
It's not just Mr. Potato Head. There were a lot of comments on the poems and what people were most drawn to. Christy wrote, love, blue, uncertainty. And Diane, you asked to see the paintings longer. I think there was just the one that I floated too quickly. We could ask you to read that poem again and have that painting up if people would like.
Yeah.
So it was the one before Guernica. Let me see if I can get to it.
The one about the clocks?
Yes.
You want to hear the poem again, or you just want to see the image?
No, I think we should, I'd rather have the poem too. So let me get to the image real quick so I know I have it up, and you can find the poem in that time, because that's probably the best way to do it. And let me see if I can get to, hang on just a second while I get to the link.
Do you want me to start to read it and then you can find the link?
No, just give me 1 second because I have it, and once I have it up, I can click. Obviously not super tech savvy. I hope everybody realizes there are quite some barriers for me. All right, so now that I have it up, this will make it easier. There we go. And okay, you may start.
Frozen clock. It is so hot in the south that time melts away. The clock folds into itself. As a child, it seemed I could freeze the hours. My mother would remain 40, moving as fast as a NASCAR race car and healthy for eternity. My father would continue mowing the lawn through summer's wilting grass, his shirt drenched in Saturday sweat, while ants crawled at a snail's pace up and down their slow-built mound. The yard is now a concrete lawn. My mother's heart races, her fastest movement these days. The ant hills have long since flattened out. My own hair grows quickly gray, and the only thing frozen in time, my father's heart and body stopped and still beneath this heated ground. There's ants.
Thank you.
There are a lot of ants in the picture. So ants, and then the clocks folding and melting. And here we are
Really
in the south.
helps to see the picture.
Yeah. Well, sometimes there are images from the picture that is sort of the jumping off point, but then I go a completely different place. And if you were to look at the picture, you would say, oh, I don't see that at all. So, you know, I have a wild imagination. And then when I see crazy, you know, images like that, well, you know, who knows what's going to happen. But I think art is very inspiring for writing anything or for creating anything.
Mm-hmm. Chris has a good question. He was asking, what was the most difficult poem to write in this book?
There's one called Death and the Miser. I didn't read it. There is an image on the links. I don't want you to have to shuffle around to find it, but there is an image of that specific painting. It's on 56 of the book. It took so many rewrites. It gave me headaches. And it's a rather long poem too. And
read it?
Huh?
Do you want to read it?
Well, okay, I'll read it. Death and the Miser. And where did...
Hang on just a second. Everybody make sure you mute.
Yeah, so it's the one to the right, and it's kind of a small version of it. There's a lot going on in this. You can't see the window clearly. I think part of the reason I struggled with this is I had to do some research. There are things related to Christ. I'm a Jew, so that kind of threw me. Death and the Miser. And where did greed ever lead the merchant anyway? Years he spent accumulating gold coins in a sack, then hiding them inside the locked chest, never giving back with love or charity. Does special treatment arrive in the end for men with an abundance of wealth? He reclines skeleton-like in his penultimate role as patient, thin and pale and firm, waiting in the hospice suite. His former vibrant self stands opposite, taunting, demons surrounding the bed, and lustful death creaking open the door. Even now, when a shady creature offers that bag replete with riches, the dying man reaches shamelessly instead of noticing the window square section of Christ, streaming light pouring embers of redemption in his direction. Why must he once again ignore the angel's gentle suggestion? And why does he, in these final seconds, draw his hand instead toward avarice when no velvet robes or ruby encrusted gold crowns will accompany any man to that eternal netherland? So it's a very greedy man who has accumulated wealth, and he's clinging to it in the end. To what end? Mm-hmm.
That
But
was
your
fantastic.
language was so beautiful and so, I don't know, evocative.
It's a cool painting. Yeah, there was a lot going on. I think that's why it was so hard to write, because I had to figure out the story. I had to do some research. It wasn't a simple painting.
So there's another question too, that come from Karen. Did you set out to write a collection of acrostic poems, or did it just kind of happen? So what was the process for you?
I had written a couple before, and one summer, what was this, Barry? 2017? 2017, I had written like 6 in a row. And I said, oh, I think I'll just keep writing. I think this will be my summer project. And I just kept looking at art and saying, oh yeah, this one. Oh, I want to write about this one. And like I said, I had always been exposed to art, and it just seemed like something fun to do.
I'm glad you did it. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
So other comments that I don't want you to miss, Maureen, as Karen was saying, I love the contrast of the poems in response to famous paintings, with the poem about the poet wanting to be an artist. And obviously Picasso in the food court's a hit. She wrote, I love this so much. And Bernie said, that's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And Christy was commenting on smoke remains in my eyes. And then I don't want to miss this one comment, because Chris is kind of a follow-up for his question. He said, awesome poem. I love it even more hearing you read it. So I don't want to miss any questions. If you have a question, you can either unmute and ask her directly, or send something to the chat section so we will see it that way. I also have 2 people who were wanting to read. I know there's more than that. So if you want to read for open mic, remember to send me a message on the chat, or just let me know.
Can I mention one thing? Also, thank you for listening. I appreciate that you all showed up and listened tonight. And thank you again, Malika. I do have a young adult book. It's my first novel. It's coming out in September. This is a new area for me. I actually started writing a book many years ago, but when I met Barry, he looked at it and he said, yeah, this is pretty good. Why don't you revise it? So I revised it, and it's coming out in September, and that's also my website. It's called Lucky Brilliant. So that one is available for pre-order now, and there's a discount if you order it now. So I just thought I'd mention that if you have teenagers or you know teenagers.
That's awesome. And I can bring up the website again too. And then there was another question that I don't want to miss. Okay, Karen asks, how do you select your publishers?
I do a lot of research. Somebody asked me recently, why do you keep hopping around between, it's a different, we have some wonderful fiction writers in our audience, Diane Chamberlain, Elaine Orr, their books sell. As you all know, the poets here, we write poetry because we have to write it. We don't ever expect to make, more than, $20 or something. Sometimes you win a prize, it gives you good credentials for teaching and other things. But with finding publishers for poetry, I want to keep moving into better neighborhoods, I guess I'd say. So I want to be published by presses that are pleasant to work with, that do a very good, efficient job, that put out a good product. Hand raised? Is your hand raised, Paul? No. And that publish writers whose work I really admire also. And I am really happy with a lot of my different publishers I've tried, but I'm also trying to get outside of North Carolina. I'm not a Southern writer. I will never be a Southern writer. I live in the South, but I feel that I need an audience that is beyond North Carolina. I love my North Carolina audience if I have one, but I'll never be a Southern poet. I have more of a Northern sensibility. And that just many reasons. This last publisher I worked with, I absolutely adored, Future Cycle. They have an interesting publishing model. They're very picky about who they select. I was really pleased to be published by them. They did a fantastic job on the book. They were so professional and so efficient, which I love. And they do it for the love of poetry. And they basically simplified their model because, I mean, how many poets get royalty checks, honestly? You know, we don't really get a lot of royalty checks. Maybe there are 5 bigger poetry houses that you might get checks from. So what this publisher does is they don't pay royalties. I'm okay with that. They put all the money back into publishing good new writers. And once a year, they take 20% of their profits and they award it to one writer. It's almost like a competition. So they have outside judges who then read all the things that have been published by this press, and they award 20% of their net profits to one of the poets.
Wow.
We don't write poetry because we expect to make money.
Right.
I think their model is good because that will ensure that the books will last, that they will keep publishing good literature, and I admire that. So
I like that.
yeah, so I like that. For the young adult book, that was a different matter. I shopped it around. I ended up with a very small press in Texas. I'm okay with that. I'm writing a women's fiction novel, and I would like to get an agent for that book, and I would like to make money on that book. So very different genre.
Sweet.
You're muted,
That's
Malika.
a worthy goal. That's awesome. And I'm going to go ahead and click to your website again, just so there's people can see the amount of. I mean, you're very prolific, and it's amazing to see like the whole list of books. Look at that.
Wow.
That's awesome. I
I'm
think we
old.
did that the last time we were together, Maureen. I brought him up and was talking about the different covers.
If you link on novel. So my son had to redesign this website because I said, oh, I have a novel coming out. I don't have a tab for that. So if you go to the top and there's a tab for novel, Malika, you can pull up the cover for my novel that's coming out.
Sure. There we go.
Under novel right there. There it is.
Oh, Lucky Bryant. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's the delay. I was hitting it, but it takes a while to show up on the screen. That's an awesome cover.
I love that cover.
I do too. I really am really happy with it.
Great title. Love the title.
Yeah, and the mood of the book goes with that. It's not a happy young adult novel. I think adults will like it too. There's a lot going on in the book. It's a family drama, mainly about a father who's murdered for his winning lottery ticket in New Jersey.
Oh,
And after he's murdered, his wife and 15-year-old daughter, who's named Lucky, find out all the secrets about him that they were clueless
I
about.
love that kind of.
And it's sort of heartbreaking what happens, but hopefully it's inspiring too. I'm very attached to my main character, Lucky. when I was doing my final edits recently, I got all teary-eyed. I'm like, oh, poor Lucky.
Oh.
That's great.
Maureen, what age group would you recommend it for?
Well, it's really, young adults, really 12 to 18, but I think it's a crossover novel, I'm hoping. I think that adults are going to like it as well. Because even though it's from the point of view of the main character, Lucky, the 15-year-old who turns 16 during the book, she sees what's going on with her mother and with the adults there. So there are some adult things. One of the things they find out is that her father was a big cheater and had a mistress.
Oh,
And so those subjects are mature, but it's through the eyes of the 15-year-old. And I think it's tame, right, Barry? Barry, you think it's appropriate for 12 to 18-year-olds, younger? Yeah. I know when I was 12, I would have read it.
We have another good question. Karen asks, are you working in multiple genres at the same time? And also, could you talk about your writing practice, how you, what works for you?
It's gone to hell in a handbasket over the last 2 weeks because I have been, we had to go to online classes. I have 5 online classes. I just today got my grades in, thank God. I was also editing our literary journal, and I finished that today. But I'm pretty driven. I've always been a hard worker. So I typically come home from school, just like when I was a kid, but now from teaching school, not as a student. I come home from school and I write a couple poems, or I'll write flash fiction. I've been writing some short stories. As soon as I'm done advising 30 students, I'm going to go back to my novel. I've been sneaking in poems here and there, but I've been wanting to write more short stories lately. I juggle things.
Wow.
And that seems to work really well for you. That's a good question.
I like to be really, really active mentally, up here. Yeah.
Yay, thank you. Well, I'm gonna, ask one more time. Does anybody want to read for open mic? And do we have any more questions? And can we also give Maureen a big round of applause? That's one of the things that's harder to do when you're reading.
Bravo.
Yay. Thank you so much, Maureen.
Thank you,
Yes,
Maureen.
thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Awesome.
Great.
Maureen?
Huh? I'll sign it. I'm signing it. Oh, and if you wanna write to me, Sherbondy Maureen@gmail.com. I'm happy to sign a book and send it through the mail. And I might even send you a mask. I have a few extra masks.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I think it's the sticker price is like $15.95, but if you just get it from me, I'll charge you $12.
Yay, that's thank you, Maureen. That's wonderful, because I know I like to have signed books. And
Okay.
I don't know when we'll be in person again to do such a thing, but if I get it directly from you, you can sign it and mail it. That's awesome.
Okay.
Well, fantastic.
thanks
So
for-
I've got Joan and Paul want to read.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I wanna
So
read.
what I want to do is we will make you the spotlight, Joan. And then do you want me to stop recording, or would you like it to be part of the overall recording? You can just send me a message or whatever works for you.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Report. But first, let it not be said that we don't profit from poetry. I won the Carborough Day Poetry Award, and I got this T-shirt.
Wondered what that was.
Just came in the mail. I haven't got a T-shirt from a poem since the 70s. So let it not be said that poetry isn't putting clothes on my back. So this is recital. 2 by 2 across the stage, barefoot girls in promenade, 2 straight lines, arms linked just so, prancing steps, pointed toes. Mrs. Blank begins the story of Madeline, told in rhyme, in an old house in Paris that was covered with vines. One child, in thrall to grace and rhythm, drilled in effortless precision, marks her cues, obeys the music, weaves away across the boards. Watch her spin, intake of breath, unbroken smile, ecstatic lift of strength and artifice, complete belief in beauty's sway. 12 little girls in 2 straight lines in black leotards and pale pink tights, one amongst them lit by glory. But it's only a Saturday, only a story.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. That was
Yay.
really cool. Thank you, Joan. And Paul wrote down, yep, put a shirt on your back. So it could clothe us. I have Paul that wanted to read next, and I will come to you. And then Karen, I saw you were willing to as well.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay. I'll share it so you can see it. So that's sometimes useful.
Oh,
So
nice.
this is not seasonal, but it's also a way that you can actually see a journal here too. Early fall, new moon. When I'm dreaming like this, it's as if I woke up sober and didn't deserve to be. Like I woke up to a gentle rain or a slow waterfall after a long, dry September. Gone are the little pains. In their place, one ecstasy, one immense pile of leaves where children hide most of themselves. They are hooting like trains, imagining I can't see them. I act as if I don't. I've already left that life, but where is the new one? The black cloud on the black mountain will in time be home to trout from rainbow to rainbow, a path we all will know.
Awesome. It is nice to
Nice.
see it too. That
Mm,
was
yeah.
lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, Joan, I don't want you to miss that Barry wrote to you lovely sounds, Joan, because a lot of times people stop reading the chats. Thank you, Paul. Karen, I had you written down as willing to read.
Oh, yes. Oh, me?
Yes.
Am I next?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I picked this out after Maureen was talking about being in a tree. So this is one I was actually working on earlier today. So how to make a friend. Listen. Tell her about your favorite place to be as a child, about stretching out on the curve of the arm of a willow tree, watching the silver white ribbons of light wave from the ridges of ripples on the pond, about being rocked so gently in the willow tree's arms, being welcomed and cajoled by the deep bereep of the unseen bullfrog calling from the weeds, about closing your eyes so the swaying of leafy tendrils through sunlight and shadow would tickle the pink of your eyelids with strobe lights, about tiptoeing and leaping to land on the small patches of solid ground below the dam, among the ever-changing golden brown rivulets of water wandering around the giant, deeply green unfurlings of fern fronds and the tall, furry stalks of shaggy swamp moss. Laugh. Lead the way down Davis Road at dusk. Point out the flittering silhouettes of the bats. Insist that they are not swallows, that they are in fact flittering and dipping and darting about to pursue and gobble up their dinner of insects. Admit that you two aren't convinced that the bats do not want to be in your hair. Laugh some more. Be quiet. Let the light around you change. Let the light inside you change. Let the darkness settle into the sand on the shore of Grassy Creek, into the dewy grass, to the cooling pavement of Davis Road as you follow her back to the calming, to the quieting of the scent of something blooming, of something wafting, of something growing magical somehow in its being unnamed, in its being unneeded of unnaming. Light a fire, listen, speak, breathe and listen, pick up a stick and hold it and feel it and poke it at the fire. Breathe and find your truth. Listen and speak your truth. Breathe and poke the fire and give your stick to the fire. See the fire, see the embers, cry and laugh and speak and listen and be. Don't make a friend, be a friend.
Yay, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for listening.
Christy was saying she loved tickle the pink of your eyelids.
Oh,
And then Barry said, very nice.
thanks.
Also, I didn't want to miss that Barry also said to you, Paul, kids in the leaves, Paul, a hoot. It's nice to have the comments, right?
I love
like
the
seeing that. Did I miss anybody that wanted to read? I've checked through the chat section, but I don't see anybody's name. So speak now. Let me know.
Malika, how about
Oh,
you?
and also, Maureen, I can read. I also wanted to go back to something Barry said, though. He said your brother's painting is over your shoulder, Maureen. One of your brother's paintings. The one
really
you talked
good
about.
one. Yeah, I can show you. He did this when
That's
he
what I
was
was
like 20.
hoping. That's what I meant to ask earlier.
Oh, it's dark. Let me turn this. This is a very old one. Can you see?
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Wow. He does a lot of trees now, things related to trees. This he did when he was like 20, I think. He'd be embarrassed.
That's
if I should-
great.
Yeah. But I have a lot of family art. I just want to show you this one. This is my favorite. It might be too dark in here right now. I love this one. Oh, it's shiny with the, you can't really see it.
yeah, it can be hard. No, that's lovely though.
Oh,
Who did
Can you
that?
see it? A friend of my grandfather, a guy named Karl Heidenreich, he was a German painter. Our family has most of his work. But he was also friends with Ramir Bearden. And some of my family members have art by Ramir Bearden, like my brother David. My uncles have it. I wasn't so lucky to get that.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like it skips the generation because my mom was an artist, Maureen. I feel your pain, and my daughter, and I used to joke, I can't make a stick figure. Although oddly enough, when my mother passed, I inherited her paintbrushes and paint, which I think was the cosmic joke. But I've started painting in the past 5 years, so you never know.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Maureen,
some of your stuff. Yeah.
Maureen, I saw something you
You
were
had a
painting
question, Karen?
recently.
Me?
Oh, no, Malika.
I don't paint.
Malika.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I started, like I said, when I inherited that stuff, Karen, so I painted something for my daughter, the one who's an artist. It's a butterfly
so nice.
whisperer. So I'll read one, and then I think we had someone join us, so that was in the waiting room. Hopefully I didn't keep them waiting in the waiting room too long. I'm just going to read from the Stumblefields, which is supposed to be here any day now. I cannot wait. I don't know what I'm going to do with the books, but I am excited to have them in hand. So it's someone be my anchor, my sail, my sea. I'd follow that blue light into the sky, into water, into the center of my chest. Ride the inevitable wave to where a flame struggles to burn in such a small space. He says, I will make you whole, savage as wind and as inconsolable. My God, I'm ready to be the empty flute, the full chalice, the endless burn, winged and fire-tongued again.
Oh,
Thank you guys.
That one.
We've enjoyed such
Cool,
another
that's cool.
Thursday. I
Yes.
love this. Thank y'all so very much.
You.
This
Thank you, Molly.
Thursday is kind of a main day for me. So thank you for being very good company. And Maureen, lovely reading. I was really looking forward to this book because it's, I like that you take on different ways of looking at poetry or experiencing poetry. It's lovely. So that was awesome.
Thank you.
And I think it's also funny how you said, oddly enough, these are paintings, but somehow my family shows up there. And I think a lot of times, even in persona poems, we might run across those biographical
Can't get rid of
details.
those people. Can't get rid of them.
Can't get rid of them.
True story. All right. Be well.
You too. Thanks.
We'll see some of y'all next Thursday at 7
Bye.
o'clock.
Bye.
Another way to
I
all the
will post the link.
Oh, Malika, can you still hear me?
Say it again.
Did you want to plug the Poetry Society's all-day poetry event Saturday?
Well, Karen, what a lovely idea. And if I didn't have you as my right-hand person, I would never think of that. And with you and Joan. So yes, Saturday, we will have awards day starting at 10 o'clock. If you go to the North Carolina Poetry Society Facebook page or even website, you can have the link. We'll have an open mic, so we'd love to see you there. And the anthology is out. And should you, as a member, wish to have your anthology mailed to you, you may email Joan. Joan, do you want to say, thank you, Paul, for putting the link for the North Carolina Poetry Society. And Joan, your email is isn't it just your name at Gmail? Is that correct?
No, it's MsJoan9@gmail.com. Ms. Joan 9.
Miss Joan, it's very Southern.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I don't know if anybody else noticed, but at one point, Maureen's cat was like all over her. When you were, I guess during open mic, Maureen, it was funny.
Yeah.
Cats love stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, and so Paul, man, I need you at every meeting I am involved with, but Paul just put in Joan's email address. And Chris, thanks for being here. And he wrote, thanks for organizing this. Thanks for Maureen for her great poetry, and that I hope everyone will buy her book. Thanks, Chris. That's very important to support each other, especially when you have a book in these difficult times. It's not an easy sell anyway, poetry at the best of times.
Right.
Well, that's why I'm
Yeah.
teaching.
Oh, Kieran's cat.
Yeah.
That's it.
Good night.
Okay,
night.
next time, let's not bring your animal to a poetry reading thing. We can do that.
I like that.
I like it.
We call it Pets and Wine.
There you go.
I like it.
Pets and Wine poetry. All right. Thank y'all so very much. I will put the link up, Maureen, so you can share it with people.
Thanks,
Great.
Malika.
Friday, Saturday.
Bye-bye.